Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Commander Deck Tech here on my channel. I'm Capital G, and this is Kalemne, Disciple of Ironas. Let's have a look at our deck and have some fun. Alright, so here we are with Kalemne, Disciple of Ironas. She is a 3/3 double strike vigilance for 4 mana. Because, you know what? Boros is aggressive. That's what's nice about the red and white combination. Their drawback, of course, is that they don't draw a whole bunch of cards, so they're a bit of a glass cannon in this format, but I love having her as a cannon. The thing that draws me to Kalemne, as opposed to a lot of the other Boros commanders, is her experience counters. Whenever you cast a creature spell with converted mana cost 5 or greater, while Kalemne is on the battlefield, you get an experience counter. And for each experience counter that you have, she gets +1/+1. So because you accumulate the experience counters and not her, no matter how many times she's removed, she comes back with that permanent bonus. So the deck is focused mainly on those experience counters, of course. It's a Boros good stuff deck. What makes her fun to build around is that you can also go Giant Tribal, you can go Soldier Tribal, you can go full-on Voltron. Kalemne loves her equipment, just so you all know. So, let's show you what I've got. Start with some rampifacts, if you will, ramping artifacts. Classics like Soul Ring, Boros Signet, Thought Vessel. The no maximum hand size is not so important in this deck. It's the idea that you can power out Kalemne on turn 2 or 3 with this. Cold Steel Heart, same thing. You can choose a color when it comes into play, either red or white. If you already have your red mana, you generally want to choose white, and you'll see why as we go through the list. And it taps for a snow mana, so if ever you get caught in this weird snow mana situation, Cold Steel Heart can help you with that. We have Boros Bluestone that taps red or white and sacks off for a card. We have the Worn Power Stone, which taps for 2 colorless, but it's a bit more, quite a bit more expensive and slower than the Soul Ring. Boros Keyrune, again, for red or white, or you can turn this into a creature. For our, shall we say, mid to late game creatures, we have Hedron Archive and the Dreamstone Hedron to help power those out, tapping for 2 and 3 colorless respectively, and sacking off for 2 or 3 cards respectively in the later stages of the game. Speaking of sacking off the cards, how about a Scroll of Avacyn? There's some angels in this deck, just so you know. It says 1, sacrifice the scroll to draw a card. So it's a cantrip. If you control an angel, you gain 5 life. That could be handy. You also have an Armillary Sphere. It's essentially card draw. It pulls 2 lands out of your deck and put them into your hand. And you have Seer Sundial, which is definitely card draw. Drop your land in, you pay your 2 mana, you draw a card. You know how I said Kalemne loves her equipment? Well, Stitcher's Graft. Cost 1 to drop, cost 2 to equip, +3/+3. You know what? The equipped creature can't untap during its controller's untap step. That's fine, because you know what? Kalemne doesn't tap to attack to begin with. Swift-foot boots, because if there's any keyword that Kalemne is missing, it's haste. Another thing that she's missing is lifelink, so locks out on Warhammer gives us that kind of thing. Sunforger! +4/0, that is a huge buff. And the option of unequipping it for red and white to pull an instant out of your deck, costing 4 or less, has to be a red or white instant. Pull it out of your deck, cast it right away. I've got a few that can help us out over the course of the game. And just a random like blanket enchantment, always watching just because of the Anthem effect. And even though Kalemne herself already has Vigilance, a lot of her friends don't. So who are Kalemne's friends? We'll start with some smaller ones that don't give Kalemne experience, but they definitely help us out over the course of the game, such as Auramancer, brings an enchantment back from your graveyard to your hand. You're going to see a few more enchantments in the deck as we go through, of course. Pilgrim's Eye to pull a land from your deck. Magus of the Wheel. You can sack them off. Everyone discards their hand and draws 7. You probably won't have too many cards in your hand when you use this. Desolation Giant. He won't give Kalemne any experience, but he can, as long as you use that kicker, raft the board. Novelist of War. This will give Kalemne experience. It also gives Kalemne and any other attacking creature you control +2/+0, including itself. Adriana, Captain of the Guard. Give all your creatures melee. That includes Kalemne, of course. Balefire Liege, +1/+1 to all red creatures, which Kalemne, and amongst others, is. +1/+1 to all white creatures you control, which Kalemne, amongst many others in this deck, are. You cast a white spell, you gain 3 life. You cast a red spell, you deal out 3 damage. Celestial Archon. You've got a couple of options with him. You can cast him out for 5 mana with Kalemne on the field to get the experience counter and a 4/4 flyer. Or you can cast him as an aura with the Bestow. Bestow cost is a little higher, but if you drop that on Kalemne or any of the other creatures in the deck, they get +4/+4 and flying. If they don't already have first strike, you're going to gain it. Goblin Dark Dwellers. The 4/4 Menace makes him a pretty buff creature in this deck. But it's the fact that you can recast one of your previously used instants and sorceries. That's what he's in the deck for. You have Thaya's Lancers. Search your deck for a legendary creature, put it into your hand. It could be its legendary permanent, in fact. You can actually pull a land out of this deck. You have Hoarding Dragon that can pull an artifact out of the deck. The difference is that the artifact that is pulled is exiled until the Hoarding Dragon dies. But once the Hoarding Dragon dies, that artifact goes to your hand and it's yours to use. Battlehorn, because we like artifacts, but we don't like our opponent's artifacts. Pentarch Paladin. Choose a color when he comes down. Pay 2 white, tap the Paladin, blow up said permanent of the color that you chose. Oh, and in combat he has flanking just because. We have Sun Titan. We don't have a lot of low-cost permanents per se, but Sun Titan is there to help us get those back when we need them. Not to mention the 6/6 Vigilance. And the mana cost that is so very compatible with Kalemne's experience. Same is true for the Inferno Titan in the experience department, but instead of bringing stuff back from the yard, he just deals out damage. Speaking of dealing out damage, the Crater Hellion comes down, deals 4 damage to each other creature. So that can clear out a lot of pesky tokens. Avenger of Zendikar, not a problem. Boom. It does have an echo cost. Costs 6 mana to keep him into play after that first turn, but sometimes you'll need it, sometimes you don't. We have a Daybreak, or Dawnbreak in fact, a Dawnbreak Reclaimer. It's a 5/5 flying for 6, good size. At the beginning of your end step, choose a creature card in an opponent's graveyard. That opponent chooses a creature in your graveyard. You decide whether or not those creatures come back into play under their owner's control. Linvala the Preserver. Somebody's got more life than you, gain 5 life. Somebody's got more creatures than you, get a 3/3 flyer. And that's in addition to the fact that she's a 5/5 flyer. That gives Kalemne experience. Sunblast Angel. You punch somebody in the face, they crack back with their army. Sunblast solves that problem. They won't crack back again. Wisp Weaver Angel. You notice I have a lot of really cool enter the battlefield effects, especially at the 6 cost. Whisperweaver Angel not only gives Kalemne some experience, but can trigger another ETB for us. Firemane Angel gains us a little bit of life. She's not the biggest flyer in the deck, but she has built-in recursion. Look at that. It's expensive at 10 mana to recur her, but you can recur her without any other spells or abilities. You just pay your 10, drop her on the field from your graveyard. Angel of Serenity. Exiles 3 target creatures from the battlefield or from graveyards. And when the Angel of Serenity leaves the battlefield for any reason, return each of the exiled cards to their owner's hands. So, she comes down, she's a big flyer, and she's strictly better than all of the Oblivion Ring style effects that we see from white. We have an Amira Shepherd. She's out, you play a land, you get a creature back from your yard to your hand. If that land is a plains, they hit the battlefield instead. Recursion is a thing in this deck. And we have Illuminate Primordial. If recursion is a thing in your opponent's decks, well, it's going to exile a creature from each of your opponent's battlefields. They're going to gain a little bit of life for it, but we're talking about Kalemne here. That's not going to be a problem. That's a Gisela. If there's a Gisela, there's also a Bruna. So, I've yet to get these two angels into the battlefield at the same time, of course. It's pretty tricky to do in a commander deck where you don't have much in the way of tutoring. But they're both useful on their own. Gisela, of course, with the first strike, the flying and the lifelink, and it comes out pretty cheap. And Bruna, with the ability to bring an angel from your graveyard back into play when you drop it. And that's on top of the fact she's 5/7 vigilance. Speaking of Gisela, we have her original version here, the Blade of Gold Knight. Now, she's one of the more popular borrowed commanders, mainly because of her ability to double damage dealt to your opponents and half damage dealt to you and your permanents. She is a monster in any Boros deck. So those are Kalemne's helpers. What other tricks do we have up our sleeves here? Well, I mentioned a lot of enchantments. Some of them are single target removal enchantments, such as Chain to the Rocks, such as Suspension Field, such as Banishing Light, such as Oblivion Ring. Exile some permanents right off the board with those. We also have Tariff, sneaky little sorcery here, where each player chooses their most expensive creature and pays its converted mana cost or sacrifices the creature. So, if you got any problems with, I don't know, a Colossus of some sort, Tariff will solve that problem for you. Shattering Blow is another solution to any Colossi problem you might run into. Exile target artifact, plain and simple. Crypt Swap exiles any creature. They get a 1/1 Changeling. A Changeling is every creature type, but that's actually a very, very nothing return. The only disadvantage of Crypt Swap, of course, is the fact that it's a 3 mana cost as opposed to the 1 mana of other white exile effects. We do have a Solemn Offering that destroys an artifact or an enchantment and gains you 4 life. We have a Structural Distortion that exiles an artifact or a land, and it deals 2 damage to its controller. Don't laugh, actually, I managed to finish somebody off with this card. Orm's Thunder, potential 2-for-1. It pops an artifact or enchantment, and if you pay its 1 red mana kicker, you deal damage equal to the destroyed artifact or enchantment's converted mana cost to a creature. So potential 2-for-1 here. Potential many-for-1 is Katar's Wrath. It's the only sorcery board wipe we have in the deck. Destroys all creatures, they can't be regenerated. And you might end up with a couple of birds if you have enough cards in your graveyard. Again, Boros card draw is not really a thing, so Just tossed in a Faithless Looting to help cycle through cards a little bit. Boros, of course, is fairly vulnerable to the Crackback, which is why we have Rootborn Defenses to give everything indestructible. We have cards like Safe Passage and Ride Control to prevent combat damage from any creatures that swing back at us. And we have some Planeswalkers. A Johnny Call of the Pride. Goes very, very well with Kalemne, in fact. The +1/+1 counter that you can just drop on a Kalemne in addition to the experience she collects. Good stuff. There's also that -3 bet where target creature gains flying and double strike until end of turn. Even if you don't have Kalemne out, you can get another one of your creatures flying and double strike and smack. The -8, you don't need it, but having X/2/2 cats for X as your life total is still a nice option to have. Elspeth, Knight Errant. +1 for a 1/1 soldier token, so she's actually pretty on flavor here. There's also the +1 to give target creature +3/+3 and flying until the end of turn. Kalemne loves that one. She also has a -8. That -8 makes all your creatures, lands, and artifacts and enchantments indestructible. If you need to use that, that means the game's going a little too long, I think, but still a nice ability. We have Nahiri the Harbinger. Is it Harbinger, Harbinger? I'm not entirely sure. What I am sure of is that +2 is very useful. Discard a card, draw a card. That -2 is very useful. Exiling a tapped artifact, tapped creature, or an enchantment. The -8 lets you pull a creature from your deck. It gains haste and then it goes to your hand. I guess it's card draw in Boros? I don't know. I don't deliberately build up to that -8. The -2 is so useful. That's what she's here for. And now for mana. 9 mountains. 9 plains. We have a new Benala. Taps for a white and scries for 1. We have a Janjo Castle. Very tricky to pronounce. I did not get that right at all. Do not impersonate the way I pronounce that card. But if you have a bunch of legends in your deck, play this card. It taps for a white without ever having to come into play tapped. And, 1 white, tap it, prevent 2 damage to a legendary creature. Could be the edge it needs in combat. Blighted Gorge. I've actually finished off an opponent with this card also. It's just 5 sack, deal 2 damage to a target. Not great, but sometimes that's all you need. Rogue's Passage, however, is an awesome card. Give a creature unblockable until end of turn. Kalemne likes being unblockable. So does all of the other creatures in this deck, that's for sure. Temple of the False God for a little bit of ramping. Opal Palace. Because this, whenever you cast and recast your Kalemne, gives her a boost. +1/+1 counters for each time that she's been cast this game, using the Opal Palace. Boros Garrison taps for red and white. Needle Spikes taps for red or white, and it turns into a 2/1 double striker. Wild Scarred, in fact, Wind Scarred Crag. Taps for red or white, gains you a life. Ancient Amphitheater taps for red or white, and if you have one of your giants in your hand, it comes in untapped. Boros Guildgate will come in tapped for red or white. Vivid Crag comes into play tapped with 2 charge counters on it, and you can use those charge counters for any other color mana you need. Vivid Meadow does the same thing. Usually you're tapping for the opposite colors, so you're tapping this one for your red mana, or you're tapping the Crag for white mana, but there'll be occasions you need something else. Command Tower, of course, will tap for whatever color you need here. We're playing both Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse in this deck to fix colors. And we have some land destruction with Strip Mine, Ghost Quarter, and Tectonic Edge. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my Kalemne Decipe of Ironas deck. Heard it said in the past that Boros decks are boring. Maybe because there aren't too many interesting builds right now for the color combination. Red and white is very much get on the ground, attack, win the game that way. That's true of every Boros grinder up to this point. But it does offer a dynamic to every game that they show up in, where you know that Boros deck is going to go after somebody and knock someone out. They definitely impact the game. They don't win every game, but they impact every game, and that's what makes Boros fun to play. What's your favorite Boros commander? Are you more of a Gisela or an Anya? Argus Cuss, if you go back all the way to the original Ravnica? Who is your favorite Boros commander? Let me know, and I'll talk to you later.